Did you know that there are so many fears that are happening in the world today? And according to some research, there are like 5 to 10 fears that never goes away. Like they say that some people are just born with these fears and they're never going to go away no matter what. I'm not going to talk about that, but I found it was very interesting that, society says you must have these fears. All right, but we're going to get into the video about some top fears and why it really doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes in the grand scheme of things. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Vernita Glenn White. I go by Dr. V, and I am your brilliant life strategist and consultant. I work with high achievers, high functioning performers, everyone who's at the top of their game. I help them in multiple areas of their lives, but to really gain more personal satisfaction and to feel more fulfilled in all areas of their lives, really beyond their positions, titles, and degrees. We do a lot of inner work, a lot of self-guidance and accountability, but we really focus on strategies with them about regaining their voice with confidence, realigning with their core values with clarity, and embracing reinvention with courage. All of those things I do believe helps you to embrace your brilliance and vibe higher in your impact, influence, brilliance, and excellence. So today we're going to talk about how to manage fear while still being brilliant, right? Because sometimes people think that, if I just need to hurry up and stop being afraid, then I can do what I do. And it's so cliche, like you can hear a lot of people say, well, just go do it, just get over it. But I think sometimes when we, especially as high achievers and things like that, sometimes we feel like if we're afraid or we're hesitating, then that means we're not brilliant, we're not smart, or people may look at us differently. And that is kind of a fear, but I'm going to help you manage that. And the way I'm going to do that is to give you some stats. So you'll see me looking at my notes because I thought this was very interesting. And I'm actually going to read some of these to you. So they do a survey every year. A lot of different groups, a lot of research companies do surveys, and I found this one. And I like this one because they were very transparent with their research. I looked at their stats. I looked at the tests that they ran. I looked at how they gathered data and things like that, their questionnaires. And that's part of the PhD that I have is understanding how to read research with a critical eye. So in this survey, they did this from the Chapman University, and they invited 2,019 people to participate in this survey. They sent out questionnaires or whatever, and then they got back 1,035 of them. So that's important. So when I read these and they put it out there like, the fears in the US, they reached across all of the states in the United States, but it's a small representative, a small sample size in comparison to the millions of people we have in the United States and in the world. And the reason why that's important is for you, when you hear stats and data, think critically sometimes about that. I think it's good, like having a good reference or a baseline, but to hold it as a holy grail and you don't know the background information of that percentage or that data point can skew a lot of things. But I am going to read these because, like I said, they were very transparent, and I thought it was a good baseline for what we're going to talk about. So they found these top fears, and it's in order, like from 1 to 10. So they did it out of 95 predetermined fears. So when they sent the questionnaire, and it's a long questionnaire, which is probably why they only got back almost half, because I looked at it was a lot. But it was a good one because it wanted to get to the demographics, the psychographic of the people, and then they gave them this questionnaire of the 95 fears that they selected. So the top 10 were corrupt government officials. That was fear number 1, and that came in at 79.6%. And they had a window of plus or minus 3%, so it could go either way. And then number 2, people I love dying, and that came up from number 5, just from 2019. So this was 2021. Number 3, a loved one contracting the coronavirus, and if you have not been around in the world we're right on the edge of coming out of a global pandemic. So that was like the number 3 fear of people, coming in at 58%. People I love becoming seriously ill. So they separated that, which I thought was pretty good. They separate that from the fear of having the virus to becoming, people becoming just ill out of, that didn't have anything to do with the virus. Number 5 was widespread civil unrest. And if you remember 2020 here in the United States and in different parts of the world, it was a lot of things happening, especially in 2020. Here, I won't name anything in particular because I don't want to leave anything out, but just in the United States and especially in the Middle East and in other places, pretty much I think every continent had something going on. In 2020, that was like, whoa, what is happening? So civil unrest is a big fear. Number 6 was a pandemic or major epidemic. They separated that from people who were contracting the virus than just an overall outbreak. Number 7 was economic and financial collapse at 54.8%. Cyber terrorism was number 8. Number 9 was pollution of rivers, oceans, and lakes, which was number 10 in 2019. And then number 4 was biological warfare. So that was from the Chapman University. So I want you to just keep that in your mind as we get into how to manage fear and still be brilliant. Now, there was another research that these people, I think it was Nexstar. I'll make sure I have the link down below. If I don't, but you can just Google it and see this research company. But what they did was they looked at all of the Google searches that happen every year and see what people are typing in. So that's another point, like people do, like everything you put into the internet becomes a data point. So they looked up what people were afraid of and their phobias, and they didn't reach out to people. Again, this was whatever they compiled over the search engine of in the Google searches. So, and I'll say this, I'm not sure if they just meant, Google now is a verb. So I don't know if they meant everything that people looked up regardless of the site engine, or if it's specifically to Google. Because, you still have Yahoo, Bing, and some other things. So, but I'm just gonna stick with what it says. It said Google searches. So the first fear was fear of failure. That is a real thing, but I just want you to just listen to everything I'm about to say. Number 2 was fear of blood. Number 3 was fear of water. Number 4 was fear of intimacy. And some people they put this as really as fear of humans, but fear of intimacy. And then tied was, for number 5, was fear of spiders and being outside. And you can see vastly different surveys, Google searches were people coming up on their own, typing that in, and then the survey was a list of 95 predetermined fears and let people answer questions based on those things. But still, I think both of those show some good information as a baseline. The interesting thing about the second survey I talked about, or the second research point I talked about, they actually broke this down by state. So you can see what people fear the most in the state. And I'm from Florida, and people were afraid of blood the most in Florida. I thought that was very interesting. All right, but seriously, what does this have to do with how to manage fear and still be brilliant? This may come across as a little harsh, but just know it's coming from a place of love, and some tough love, to where I even had to talk to myself, and I've had to talk to clients. And even when I was teaching in classrooms, whether that was in K-12 or higher ed, or when I was doing workshops, I had these conversations, and it still came from a place of, I need you to embrace your brilliance and get over yourself. I don't want you to think that I'm minimizing anything, because whatever is happening in your life is real to you. It is real to you. And I thank my mom for saying that to me, because I used to feel like, well, some of the things that bothered me or I had concerns about or fears about, because they weren't world changing or life altering, I didn't think they were important. But that's not true, because they are important. So I'm thankful that my mom validated those feelings for me. With that being said, that doesn't give you an out to be stuck. So for a lot of brilliant people, high functioning, high achievers, overthinkers, successful people, we look good on paper. A lot of times when it's time for us to make a shift, we're afraid to make the shift. And a lot of things could be afraid to write the book, afraid to apply for the new job, to get the promotion, afraid to do the sales pitch, afraid to start the side business, afraid to step into the role of a leader and having to go through an election process, whatever the case may be. And I know that one of the fears was fear of failure, and there is a such thing as a fear of success. But think about all of those things I just read, things that people are genuinely afraid of. And you have to ask yourself, am I really being ridiculous by not sending a pitch email, an inquiry, starting to write the outline of my book, applying for an LLC, leaving I don't want to get that deep. I was about to say leaving a relationship, but I'm not going to get into that. But just those small things as it pertains to growing yourself, reaching your goals and things like that. Don't want to start the new diet, don't want to buy new supplements and things like that. When you think about it, it kind of sounds ridiculous. And again, I'm not minimizing, but when you hear about all of those fears I just read, and then we're talking about, we're afraid to step out of our comfort zone. It's like, really, people? Like, some of this doesn't even matter. And I don't even think it's fear at this point. I really think it's, like I said, it's about not being in your comfort zone. It's about stepping out of that, pushing your limit line, because a lot of us have gotten, we have success. We've reached certain levels in our lives, in our careers. We saved some money, bought some things, got some titles, got some positions, and the family, the friends. We have a life. It may not be everything that you wanted, but it is pretty good, right? And sometimes just the thought of going back, like you had to push yourself to get to this certain point. Now you're kind of coasting, and now your soul is calling for you to go to another level, and we're like, I'm afraid to take this next step. I don't think it's fear. I think it's not wanting to exercise that muscle again of that grit and what I have to do and step out there and do all of that. But if you're not doing any of that, you're really not growing. So the next time you think about, I'm so afraid of sending this email, I'm afraid of calling, this company for X, Y, Z, I'm afraid to do all of those little things, just insert one of those fears I listed. In the grand scheme of things, should you really be afraid? And that's one of the things I want you to think about. I'm gonna give you 3 things, and that was number 1. Think about it. I don't want to start this new business because I'm afraid that it's gonna flop. Okay, so what? All right, think about the other fears I just listed. What is the worst that can happen? You started something that didn't work out, try again. And some people say, that's easier said than done. But on some of these things that we are fake fearing, it's easy. Like, just do it. It really is that easy, and pick yourself back up. So again, I'm not talking about these massive fears. I'm talking about these little pseudo fears they're really not fears. They're just, we don't want to step out of our comfort zone. The second thing I want you to think about when you're thinking about managing your fear and still be brilliant is to understand that fear and excitement, they have the same physical or physiological, I'll stick with physical reaction in your body. You get the same things that are happening. Your mind doesn't know the difference between a fear, being afraid, and being excited. So just tell yourself, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to send this pitch idea. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to start writing the outline of this book. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to run for this particular office, in my community, whatever the case may be. Start telling your body that you're excited, because you're going to go through those reactions anyway. So why not look on the positive side of doing that? The third thing I want you to think about as you're trying to figure out how to manage your fear and still be brilliant. Again, take this with love. If you don't take the steps to do something, whether you fall flat on your face, and that's the thing, as high achievers, we don't want to fail. Like, we spend a lot of our lives proving that we're not failures, and we get things on the first, maybe the second try, or if we had to try multiple times, we're not telling anybody, right? So we spend a lot of time building this up like, hey, I I do think I don't fail. But as you're getting called to something that greater or something that's new, you may stumble or you may fall flat out, but guess what? You took a step. That is better than staying where you are and having this wall of you have it all or you're very successful when you haven't tried to step out and grow yourself. People who actually step out, fall flat on their faces, they actually get more respect than for the people that never try. And if you're going to be that person to never try but still be like you have it all together, the next time when your life isn't going as well as you think, or the person that kept following you look up and you see that they have this amazing life, however, whatever attracts you to amazing, and then you look at yourself, you don't get to complain to anybody about you not liking the way your life is set up. You don't get to do that. So I know a lot of times, sometimes we're in conversations and we're like, oh man, I don't like the way this happened. Or we may, I'm going to say complain, but I'm not talking about complaining in the sense like that. Like, you know how we talk about like, oh man, I want this new car, I want this new house, or I want, to look better in my body, or I want to grow my hair, or I want a new hairstyle, or I want this different, just in conversations. But if you're not taking actions to fix any of that, you no longer get to come to the happy hour. You don't get to talk, because what you're not going to do is sit here and keep complaining and talk about you're afraid, but you don't take this next step, right? So I hope that came off the way I intended it to come off. Is you still get to be afraid, but just check your fear. Like, is it a real fear or is it a pseudo fear? But either, whatever you're feeling, you still get to feel whatever you want to feel, but that doesn't take away from you being brilliant. I think you're more brilliant if you actually say you want to write a book, and although you may not have finish it this year, but you have the outline and you've been taking steps to actually write something every day or every couple of days. That's better than the person saying, one day I'm going to write a book and never open up the document to start writing or getting the pen and paper. So that's different. Being brilliant and still being afraid, you want to go run for a community office, a council seat or something like that, because you want to see change happen. You want to make change happen, but then you're the person who complains about somebody should fix this, that, and the other, but you never step up to do that because you're afraid of not winning the election or whatever the case may be. But the person who goes out there, and even if they lost the election, they still took that step to go out there. So they get to talk about, I wish I could see change in the world, because they're making the steps. Now, I'll say this. I have a small group of people, so I'm transparent moment. I have a small group of people to where we get together, we talk, and I'll say some things, oh, I don't like this, that, and the other. But I keep it here because I'm like, I'm not complaining too much, because I'm not going to put myself in a position to make this particular change. So I'm not saying you can't have these conversations, but when it becomes overwhelming and then your circle is like, really? You keep talking about this, do something about it, but then you don't because some fear is holding you back, you don't get to say anything. All right, so I hope that makes sense for you. The way to to manage fear and still be brilliant is, one, put your fear and look at it in what people are really afraid of. And it's like, does your fear match up to these? And I know we talk about comparison is the thief of all joy. I'm not talking about that, but can you really compare your fear of, oh my gosh, I don't want to put myself out there and send this email to get this contract, versus someone who's afraid of losing someone that they love, right? You're not going to die from that. Like, that is not, like, really, come on. Let's be serious about our fears and see if they're pseudo fears and not wanting to get out of our comfort zone, or if they're just really paralyzing fear. The other thing is to switch your brain, trick your brain. Your body goes through the same thing with fear and excitement. So just tell yourself that you're excited. And then the third thing is, if you want to still be included in the happy hour or at the tea, then actually take some steps to make a change versus change, or you don't get to say anything at all and you don't get to complain because your fear is keeping you from moving. All right, so I hope that makes sense. Let me know down below. Let me know your thoughts. Like, if you agree, disagree, I am cool with that, because this is how we start a conversation. This is how we start a dialogue. I know right now it feels like a monologue because you can't talk back to me, but the way you can is down in the comments below. So I look forward to hearing from you. I am Dr. V. Thank you so much for listening and learning with me. And remember, as you're typing your comments, as you're liking, as you're subscribing, remember to be well, be empowered, be bold, and be brilliant. Until next time, bye.